What if the place that held every memory, every laugh, every tear, was about to be taken away? Lena, a mother fighting to save her home. Lucy, a little girl who hasn't painted since her father died. Then, a knock at the door. A stranger arrives. A backpack full of sketches and secrets he's been running from his entire life. As time runs out, they must find the courage to fight for their home and remember that sometimes the colors we've lost are just waiting for us to pick up the brush again. At sunrise, a modest two-story house sits quietly on a suburban street, its yellow paint peeling slightly at the corners, telling stories of better days. A small room for rent sign hangs crooked in the front window, swaying gently in the morning breeze. A desperate whisper of hope against mounting bills. The neighborhood awakens slowly. Children's bicycles lean against white picket fences. Morning joggers pass by with rhythmic footsteps. An elderly Mr. Henderson waters his prize-winning roses next door, occasionally glancing toward the house with concern etched in his weathered features. Inside, Lena Martinez stands at her bathroom mirror, applying concealer under tired eyes that haven't seen restful sleep in months. Her hands tremble slightly as she smooths her hair, once lustrous black, now streaked with premature gray from worry. In the reflection, she catches sight of her late husband Miguel's cologne bottle, still sitting untouched on the counter after 2 years. She takes a shaky breath, touching the bottle gently before turning away. Downstairs in the kitchen, the morning routine unfolds with practiced precision born of necessity. Lena pours generic cereal into chipped bowls, the sound echoing in the too-quiet house. The refrigerator hums loudly, an appliance on its last legs, held together by hope and electrical tape. 10-year-old Lucy sits at the scratched wooden table, mechanically spooning cereal while staring at an empty easel in the corner. Once this corner bloomed with her artwork. Finger paintings of rainbows, crayon drawings of the family dog they had to give away, watercolor portraits of her father's smiling face. Now it stands bare, gathering dust like her forgotten dreams. "Mama," Lucy whispers, her voice barely audible above the refrigerator's hum. "Do you think Daddy can see us from heaven?" Lena's spoon clatters against her bowl. She closes her eyes, summoning strength she doesn't feel. "Every day, mija. Every single day." But Lucy's eyes remain distant, lost in memories of bedtime stories and piggyback rides that feel like scenes from someone else's life. The doorbell's chime cuts through the morning stillness like a lifeline. Lena smooths her worn sweater, checks her reflection in the hallway mirror one last time, and opens the door to possibility. A young man stands on her doorstep, mid-20s, with olive skin and kind brown eyes that seem to hold secrets. Max Rodriguez carries everything he owns in a worn leather backpack, its straps frayed from countless journeys. His paint-stained sneakers tell stories of midnight art sessions and dreams deferred, while his fingers bear the permanent marks of someone who bleeds creativity. "Mrs. Martinez, I'm here about the room," he says, his voice carrying a slight accent and the careful politeness of someone who's learned to make good first impressions quickly. Lena studies his face, searching for the character her desperate situation forces her to trust in strangers. Something in his eyes, perhaps the same weariness she sees in her own mirror, makes her step aside. "Please, come in." The house tour becomes a careful dance of revelation and concealment. Lena shows the best angles, apologizes for the creaking stairs, explains the temperamental bathroom faucet with the expertise of someone who's become a master of making do. Max listens with genuine interest, his artist's eye catching details others might miss. The way morning light streams through the kitchen window, creating natural spotlights. The intricate molding around the door frames that speaks to the house's proud past. The family photos lining the hallway, chronicling happier times. "My husband built these shelves," Lena says, running her hand along the living room's built-in bookcase. "He said books were the only things that should be permanent in a home, because they never let you down." Max nods, understanding the weight of such statements. His own hands have built temporary homes in a dozen cities, always ready to pack and move when the past catches up. Upstairs, Lucy's door stands ajar, offering glimpses of a little girl's world frozen in time. Stuffed animals arranged with military precision. A bed made with corners sharp enough to cut. Everything clean and orderly in the way children organize their space when chaos threatens to overwhelm their small lives. Max's room sits across the hall. It's simple but honest. A twin bed under a large skylight. A small desk positioned to catch morning light. Built-in shelves waiting for books and dreams. The previous tenant left behind a small easel in the closet. Something Lena mentions apologetically, as if broken dreams might be contagious. "I can store that for you," Lena offers. "No," Max says quietly, setting down his backpack. "I think it belongs here." Later that evening, the three of them sit around the kitchen table for dinner. The first shared meal this house has seen in months. Lena has prepared arroz con pollo, her mother's recipe that transforms simple ingredients into comfort through sheer force of love and memory. The portions are modest, but the warmth is abundant. Max compliments the food with genuine appreciation, asking about spices and techniques with the curiosity of someone who understands that recipes are really stories passed down through generations. Lucy picks at her rice, stealing glances at their mysterious new housemate when she thinks no one is looking. "Lucy used to paint," Lena mentions, the words falling into the conversation like stones dropped in still water. "She was so talented," her teacher said. "Mama, no," Lucy interrupts, her voice sharp with embarrassment and grief. An uncomfortable silence settles over the table. Max sets down his fork, considering his words carefully. "I paint too," he says simply. "Would you like to see?" Before Lucy can retreat behind her usual wall of shyness, Max is already reaching for his backpack, pulling out a worn leather portfolio tied with string. His hands move with the reverence of someone handling sacred objects as he unties the binding. The first sketch takes Lucy's breath away. A charcoal drawing of a city street at dawn, shadows and light dancing between buildings in a way that makes the paper seem to breathe. The second shows an elderly woman feeding pigeons in a park, every wrinkle in her face telling a story of a life fully lived. Page after page reveals Max's journey through different cities, different lives, different moments of beauty captured and preserved. "This one's from Chicago," he explains, showing a sketch of children playing in a fire hydrant spray, their joy frozen in charcoal and hope. "And this is from a small town in New Mexico, where the sunsets turn everything gold." Lucy's eyes grow wide with wonder, her defenses crumbling before the evidence of dreams made real. "You drew all of these?" "Drawing helps me remember the good things," Max says, meeting her gaze. "Sometimes when everything feels dark, I look at these and remember that beautiful moments exist everywhere, even in the hardest times." Lena watches from across the table, seeing her daughter's interest kindle like the first spark of a long, cold fire. When was the last time Lucy showed curiosity about anything? When was the last time those small hands reached for something creative instead of simply holding on? That night, after Lucy has gone to bed and the dishes are clean, Lena and Max sit on the front porch. The neighborhood settles into evening rhythms. Porch lights flickering on, the distant sound of a television through open windows, the soft chorus of crickets beginning their nightly song. "Thank you," Lena says quietly, "for showing her your drawings. She hasn't shown interest in art since..." The sentence hangs unfinished, but Max understands. Grief has a way of stealing color from the world, making even the most beautiful things seem gray and pointless. "My father used to say that art is like hope," Max offers, his voice soft in the gathering darkness. "Even when you can't see it clearly, it's still there, waiting for the right moment to show itself again." Lena turns to study his profile in the porch light's glow. "You speak about your father in past tense." Max's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. Some relationships are more complicated than others. Before Lena can respond, a car pulls up across the street. A man in an expensive suit steps out, looking directly at their house. Max tenses, his body language shifting to alert wariness. "Do you know him?" Lena asks. But Max is already standing, his hands clenched at his sides. "I need to go inside." He disappears through the front door, leaving Lena alone on the porch as the mysterious man gets back in his car and drives away. Through the living room window, she sees Max pacing, running his hands through his hair like a man trying to escape invisible chains. Whatever secrets Max carries, Lena realizes, they're heavy enough to make a young man afraid of his own shadow. Upstairs, Lucy lies in bed staring at the ceiling, Max's drawings replaying in her mind like scenes from a movie. For the first time in 2 years, her fingers itch to hold a paintbrush, to see if she can capture even a fraction of the magic she saw in those sketched faces and landscapes. But art means hope, and hope has hurt her before. The next morning arrives gray and drizzling, the kind of weather that seems to seep into bones and spirits alike. Lena stands at the kitchen sink, watching water droplets race down the window while she washes the same coffee mug twice, her mind elsewhere. The mail slot clatters, and envelopes slide across the hardwood floor like harbingers of doom. Bill after bill, each one stamped with increasingly urgent language. Final notice, past due, immediate action required. But it's the thick envelope from Riverside Bank that makes her knees weak. With trembling fingers, she tears it open, already knowing what she'll find. The foreclosure notice might as well be written in a foreign language for all the legal jargon it contains, but the date at the bottom speaks clearly enough. 30 days to save her home or lose everything. Lena sinks into a kitchen chair, the paper falling from nerveless fingers. This house holds every memory of her married life. Miguel's laughter echoing from the living room. Lucy's first steps across these same floors. Birthday parties and Christmas mornings, and ordinary Tuesday evenings that now seem precious beyond measure. "Mama?" Lucy's voice comes from the doorway, small and uncertain. "What's wrong?" Lena quickly wipes her eyes, forcing a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "Nothing, baby. Just adult things. Go get ready for school." But Lucy has learned to read her mother's moods like weather patterns, and this storm feels different. Bigger and more dangerous than the others. At school, Lucy sits in the back of Mrs. Peterson's art class, watching her classmates paint self-portraits with the kind of carefree enthusiasm she can barely remember feeling. Their brushes dance across paper with confidence, creating bold strokes and vibrant colors that seem to mock her own paralyzed hands. "Lucy," Mrs. Peterson says gently, approaching her empty easel. "Would you like to try today?" The other children glance over, some curious, others impatient to share the teacher's attention. Lucy feels their eyes like spotlights, exposing her brokenness for everyone to see. "I can't," she whispers, the words catching in her throat like thorns. "Can't or won't?" Mrs. Peterson asks. Not unkindly, but with the directness of someone who's seen too many talented children give up on themselves. Lucy doesn't answer, but her silence speaks volumes. How do you explain to someone that picking up a paintbrush feels like betraying your father's memory? That creating something beautiful seems like a lie when everything good has been taken away? Meanwhile, at home, Max has transformed the kitchen table into an impromptu workspace. Sketches cover every surface, quick studies of light and shadow, detailed drawings of architectural elements, portraits of people he's observed from the window. His hands move with practiced precision, but there's a restlessness in his movements, as if he's drawing to outrun his own thoughts. The front doorbell rings, sharp and insistent. Max freezes, his pencil hovering over paper like a bird afraid to land. Through the window, he can see the same expensive car from the night before, and his heart begins to race. When Lena answers the door, she finds herself face to face with a man who radiates wealth and authority. His silver hair is perfectly styled, his suit tailored to perfection, but his eyes hold the same weariness she's seen in Max's face. "Good morning," the man says, his voice cultured and careful. "I'm looking for someone, a young man who might be renting a room here. Goes by Max Rodriguez?" Something in his tone sets off alarm bells in Lena's mind. This isn't the casual inquiry of a friend or relative. This feels like a hunt. "I'm sorry," she lies smoothly, "but I think you have the wrong house." The man's smile doesn't waver, but something sharp flickers in his eyes. "Mrs. Martinez, isn't it? I understand you're facing some financial difficulties. Perhaps we could help each other." The implied threat hangs in the air between them like smoke. Lena's grip tightens on the door handle, every maternal instinct screaming danger. "I don't know what you're talking about," she says, starting to close the door. "Tell Max that Richard Turner is looking for him," the man says, his polite facade slipping just enough to reveal steel underneath. "Tell him it's time to come home." After the car disappears around the corner, Lena finds Max sitting on the kitchen floor, his back against the cabinets, looking like he's seen a ghost. His sketches lie scattered around him, abandoned in his flight from whatever confrontation he's been avoiding. "Who is Richard Turner?" Lena asks, settling onto the floor beside him. Max closes his eyes, leaning his head back against the cabinet. "My father." The word hangs between them, loaded with years of pain and complicated history. "I take it you two don't have Sunday dinners together?" Lena observes with gentle humor, trying to coax more information from him. Max lets out a bitter laugh. "Richard Turner owns half the art galleries in the state. He wanted me to follow in his footsteps. Business school, corporate art deals, profit margins, and market analysis. When I told him I wanted to create art instead of just sell it, he cut you off," Lena finishes, understanding all too well how family can become battlefield. "More than that, he made sure I couldn't get gallery representation anywhere in the state. Used his connections to blacklist me from art schools, job opportunities, everything. Said if I wanted to be a starving artist, he'd make sure I starved." The cruelty of it takes Lena's breath away. What kind of father would systematically destroy his own child's dreams? "So, you've been running ever since," she says. Max nods, staring at his paint-stained hands. "City to city, job to job, always looking over my shoulder. But I never stopped drawing, never stopped believing that someday..." "Someday what?" "Someday I'd be good enough that it wouldn't matter what he did to me, that the art would speak for itself." That afternoon, Lucy comes home from school to find Max and Lena deep in conversation at the kitchen table, the foreclosure notice spread between them like a map of their shared desperation. "What's that?" Lucy asks, dropping her backpack by the door. Lena starts to deflect, to protect her daughter from adult worries, but Max catches her eye and shakes his head slightly. "Your mom got some bad news from the bank," he says gently. "They want to take the house away." Lucy's face goes white, her small hands clenching into fists. "They can't. This is our house. Daddy built the shelves and Mama planted the garden, and all my memories are here." Her voice rises to near hysteria, all the fears she's been suppressing finally finding their voice. Lena reaches for her, but Lucy pulls away, running for the stairs. "They can't take it away!" she screams over her shoulder. "It's not fair! Nothing is fair!" Her bedroom door slams with the finality of a judge's gavel, leaving the adults sitting in the wreckage of a little girl's broken world. "She's right," Max says quietly. "It's not fair." Lena wipes her eyes with the back of her hand, feeling the weight of failure crushing down on her. "I don't know what I'm going to tell her. This house is all we have left of Miguel. All we have left of being a family." Max studies the foreclosure notice, his artist's mind working through problems and possibilities. "How much do you need?" "Too much. $15,000 by the end of the month, plus legal fees and penalties. I'd need a miracle." That evening, Max takes a walk through the neighborhood, his portfolio tucked under his arm like a shield against despair. The suburbs spread around him in neat rows of middle-class dreams and mortgaged hopes, each house telling its own story of families doing their best to build something lasting in an uncertain world. At the corner market, a bulletin board catches his attention. Community notices, babysitting offers, lost cat posters, the everyday connections that bind neighborhoods together. But it's a bright yellow flyer that makes him stop and stare. Riverside City Youth Art Contest. First prize, $10,000 college scholarship. Open to artists ages 8 to 18. Deadline, 1 month from today. Max tears the flyer from the board, his hands shaking with sudden possibility. $10,000 wouldn't cover everything, but it would be enough to buy time, to give Lena space to find other solutions. But Lucy hasn't touched a paintbrush in 2 years. Getting her to enter a contest would require nothing short of a miracle. Back at the house, Max finds Lucy sitting on her bedroom floor, surrounded by art supplies she hasn't used since her father's death. Watercolors dried to hard cakes, paintbrushes stiff with neglect, sketch pads yellowed at the edges. The abandoned tools of a young artist who lost faith in beauty. "Your mom told me you used to love painting," Max says from the doorway. "Used to," Lucy says without looking up. "Before everything got ruined." Max enters the room carefully, settling cross-legged on the floor a respectful distance away. "What did you like to paint?" For a moment, he thinks she won't answer. Then, so quietly he has to strain to hear. "My family. Before. Tell me about before." And slowly, haltingly, Lucy begins to speak. About Saturday mornings, when her father would make pancakes shaped like animals while she painted at the kitchen table. About the way he would hang her artwork on the refrigerator with such ceremony that you'd think she was Picasso himself. About how safe the world felt when someone believed your scribbles were masterpieces. "He said I had magic in my hands," Lucy whispers, staring at her small fingers. "But the magic went away when he did." Max reaches into his portfolio and pulls out a sketch. Not one of his polished pieces, but a rough drawing he'd made years ago during his own darkest period. It shows a barren tree in winter, its branches reaching toward a gray sky like desperate fingers. "I drew this when I thought I'd lost everything," he says. "My father had just cut me off. I was sleeping in my car, and I couldn't see any way forward. I was so angry and sad that I could barely hold a pencil steady." Lucy looks at the sketch, seeing the pain and uncertainty in every line. But then I realized something, Max continues, pulling out another drawing. The same tree, but now in spring, with tiny buds appearing on every branch. The magic wasn't gone. It was just sleeping, waiting for the right season to bloom again. What if it never comes back? Lucy asks, her voice small and scared. Max meets her eyes, seeing his younger self in her fear. Then we'll plant new magic. But I have a feeling yours is just hibernating, waiting for you to be ready. That night, after Lucy is asleep, Max sits at his desk sketching by lamplight. But tonight, instead of random scenes and faces, he's drawing with purpose, planning something that could save them all, if he can find the courage to risk everything one more time. On the paper, a young girl stands before an easel, her face glowing with concentration and joy as colors flow from her brush like liquid hope. In the background, barely visible in the sketch's shadows, a figure watches from the doorway. A father whose love couldn't be diminished by death, whose belief in magic lives on in the hands he held and guided. The next morning, Lucy finds the sketch slipped under her door, along with a note written in Max's careful handwriting. Magic never truly leaves. It just waits for us to remember how to see it. Would you like to paint with me today? And for the first time in 2 years, Lucy feels a familiar flutter in her chest. The whisper of possibility, the faint echo of magic stirring from its long sleep. The transformation begins small, tentative as spring's first shoots pushing through winter soil. Lucy appears in the kitchen doorway while Max prepares breakfast, clutching a handful of dried paintbrushes like fragile relics. "Can you help me clean these?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper. Max's face lights up with a smile that could power the neighborhood. "I thought you'd never ask." They spend the morning at the kitchen sink, working soap through bristles hardened by neglect, watching colors bloom in the water as old paint dissolves. Lucy's hands remember the ritual, the gentle pressure needed to preserve the brush tips, the way to roll the ferrule against her palm to reshape the points. "My daddy taught me to clean them this way," she says, lost in the memory. "He said taking care of your tools was taking care of your dreams." Max nods, understanding the sacred nature of this moment. "He sounds like a wise man." "He was the best daddy in the whole world," Lucy says, tears mixing with the soap suds on her fingers. "He made everything seem possible." "What would he say about the contest?" Max asks gently, producing the yellow flyer from his pocket. Lucy reads the announcement twice, her eyes growing wide with a mixture of excitement and terror. $10,000, a college scholarship, recognition for young artists brave enough to share their visions with the world. "I'm not good enough," she says automatically, the words falling from her lips like stones worn smooth by repetition. "Let me be the judge of that," Max says, setting up the small easel he found in his closet. "But first, let's see what happens when you just play." The first brush stroke is agony. Lucy's hand shakes as she dips the brush in water, then in blue paint, then approaches the blank canvas like it might bite her. The bristles touch paper, and for a moment, nothing happens. Then, slowly, a line appears. Tentative, uncertain, but undeniably real. "I can't remember how," Lucy whispers, panic rising in her chest. "There's nothing to remember," Max says, settling beside her with his own brush and paper. "Art isn't about technique, it's about feeling. What do you feel right now?" Lucy closes her eyes, searching inside herself for something beyond fear and grief. "Scared," she admits. But also excited? Like maybe something good might happen? Then paint scared and excited, Max says, beginning his own painting. Bold strokes of orange and purple that seem to dance across the paper. Paint the feeling of maybe. And somehow, miracle of miracles, Lucy does. Her brush moves with increasing confidence, laying down washes of blue that gradually warm to violet, then pink, then gold. She's not painting anything recognizable. No houses or trees or people. Just the colors of emotions she hasn't allowed herself to feel in 2 years. Lena finds them hours later, both paint splattered and grinning, surrounded by papers covered in experimental washes and color studies. Lucy looks up from her work, her face glowing with something that might be joy. "Mama, look! I remembered how to make purple!" The simple statement carries the weight of resurrection. Lena sinks to her knees beside her daughter's chair, tears streaming down her face as she takes in the evidence of healing. "It's beautiful, mija. It's the most beautiful purple I've ever seen." Their dining room becomes mission control for Operation Art Contest. Reference photos cover the walls, family pictures, nature shots, Lucy's old drawings that Lena has secretly preserved in a shoebox under her bed. Max pins up inspiring images from art books, showing Lucy how master painters captured light, emotion, expression. "What story do you want to tell?" he asks as they plan her contest entry. Lucy studies the family photos, her gaze lingering on a picture from last Christmas. The last Christmas with her father. They're all laughing at something he said, their faces bright with unguarded happiness. Her mother looks younger, less burdened. Her father's arm wraps around them both, protective and loving. "I want to paint us," she says finally. "But not the sad us, the happy us, the us that's still true, even though Daddy's in heaven." It's a profound artistic vision for a 10-year-old, and Max recognizes the sophistication of her emotional understanding. This won't be a simple portrait. It will be an act of defiance against grief, a declaration that love persists beyond death. They start with studies. Lucy practices drawing faces, working from photographs to capture the essence of her family's expressions. Max teaches her about proportion and light, but more importantly, he teaches her to see with an artist's eye, to notice how her mother's smile starts in her eyes before it reaches her lips, how her father's laugh lines tell the story of a man who found joy in simple things. Days flow into nights as the painting takes shape. Lucy works with the intensity of someone racing against time, but also with the growing confidence of someone remembering her own power. The background emerges first, their house rendered in warm yellows and oranges, with the garden her father planted blooming in eternal spring. "It doesn't look exactly like our house," Lucy frets, stepping back to assess her work. "It looks like how the house feels," Max corrects gently. "That's more important than how it looks." Slowly, the figures begin to emerge. Lena first, painted with the careful love only a daughter can bring to her mother's portrait. Every brushstroke speaks of hands that have wiped tears, arms that have given hugs, a heart that has held their small family together through the worst of times. Her father proves more difficult. How do you paint someone who lives only in memory? How do you capture the warmth of a smile you'll never see again? "I can't get his eyes right," Lucy says, frustration thick in her voice. "They don't look like him." Max studies the reference photo, then the painting, then Lucy's discouraged face. "Tell me about his eyes. Not what they look like, but what they did." Lucy closes her own eyes, diving deep into memory. "They were always laughing, even when he wasn't. And they made me feel like I was the most important person in the world. Like I could do anything. Be anything, and he would be proud. Then paint that, Max says simply. Paint the feeling of being loved unconditionally. And somehow, she does. The eyes in the painting don't match the photograph exactly, but they capture something deeper. The essence of a father's love, the security of being cherished, the confidence that comes from knowing someone believes in your infinite potential. The painting grows more complex as Lucy's skills return. She adds details that speak to their shared history. The bird feeder her father built, visible through the kitchen window. The small garden gnome he brought home as a surprise. The way evening light falls across their front porch during their favorite time of day. But it's the figure she adds to the composition's edge that makes the painting truly extraordinary. Barely visible, painted in the softest tones, a mysterious figure watches from the corner. Someone who doesn't quite belong to the family portrait, but whose presence adds a sense of expanded possibility. "Who's that?" Lena asks when she notices the addition. Lucy looks at Max, then back at her painting, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Someone who helped us remember how to see colors again." As the contest deadline approaches, word spreads through their neighborhood about Lucy's artistic comeback. Mrs. Henderson from next door brings over homemade cookies and stays to marvel at the work in progress. Mrs. Peterson, Lucy's art teacher, stops by after school to offer encouragement and professional advice. "This is gallery quality work," she tells a beaming Lucy. "You have real talent, sweetie. Don't ever let anyone convince you otherwise." But it's the evening visitor who changes everything. Max is putting the finishing touches on Lucy's painting when the doorbell rings. Through the window, he can see the familiar silhouette of his father's expensive car. His hands still on the brush, every muscle in his body tensing for flight or fight. "I'll get it," Lena says, but Max is already standing, his face set with new determination. "No," he says quietly. "It's time." Richard Turner looks older than Max remembered, his silver hair now completely white, his face marked by lines that speak of sleepless nights and regret carried too long. When the door opens, father and son face each other across a gulf of years and wounded pride. "Maxwell," Richard says, his voice carefully controlled. "You look well." "I go by Max now," Max replies, matching his father's formal tone. "What do you want, Richard?" The use of his first name makes the older man flinch almost imperceptibly. "I want to talk to my son. You made your position clear 5 years ago. I'm not your son. I'm just some disappointing stranger who chose art over profit." Richard's composure cracks slightly. I may have been hasty in my judgment." "Hasty?" Max's voice rises with years of suppressed anger. "You destroyed my career before it could begin. You blacklisted me from every gallery and school in the state. You told me I was worthless, that my dreams were delusions. That doesn't sound hasty. That sounds calculated." Behind them, Lucy and Lena watch from the hallway, witnessing a confrontation years in the making. Lucy clutches her paintbrush like a talisman, understanding that this moment will somehow determine all their futures. "I thought," Richard begins, then stops, the words seeming to stick in his throat. "I thought if I made it hard enough, you'd come to your senses. Come back to the gallery, learn the business side, find a practical way to make art profitable. You thought you could crush my spirit until I became the son you wanted instead of the son you had," Max says, his voice deadly quiet. Richard looks past his son into the house, taking in the family photos, the evidence of lives built on love rather than money, the painting that dominates the dining room with its glowing warmth. His gaze stops on Lucy's contest entry, and something in his expression shifts. "Who painted that?" he asks, his gallery owner's eye recognizing exceptional work. "A very talented young artist," Max says, protective instincts flaring. "Someone who understands that art comes from the heart, not from market analysis." Richard steps closer to the painting, studying it with professional intensity. The composition, the color choices, the emotional resonance. This is the work of someone with genuine gift, raw but undeniable. "How old is the artist?" 10, Max says proudly. "And she's entering the city contest for the scholarship." 10 years old created this? Richard's voice carries genuine amazement. The technical skill, the emotional maturity. This is extraordinary. Lucy peeks around the corner, her curiosity overcoming her fear. This intimidating man in the expensive suit is looking at her painting like it matters, like it has value beyond the therapy it's provided. "You must be Lucy," Richard says, his voice gentling when he notices her. "Your work is remarkable, truly exceptional." Lucy blushes, suddenly understanding why Max's relationship with his father is so complicated. This man clearly knows art, can recognize talent when he sees it, but he also carries himself with the kind of authority that makes people feel small. "Thank you, sir," she says politely, the manners her mother taught her overriding her nervousness. Richard turns back to his son, and for a moment, the gallery owner mask slips away, revealing something vulnerable underneath. "I've made mistakes, Maxwell, more than I care to count. But seeing your work with this child, seeing the way you've nurtured her talent, I think I finally understand what you were trying to tell me about art." Max crosses his arms, not ready to forgive years of hurt with a single apology. "And what's that?" "That it's not about the money, it's about the connection, the way it makes people feel less alone in the world." The admission hangs in the air like a bridge neither man is quite ready to cross. Years of anger and disappointment can't be erased with words, but perhaps they can be softened enough to allow healing to begin. "The contest is tomorrow," Max says finally. "If Lucy wins, the scholarship money will help save their house." Richard nods, understanding the subtext. A $10,000 prize might not be enough, but it would be a start. And sometimes, starts are all you need to build something lasting. What if there were additional opportunities? Beyond the contest? Richard asks, choosing his words with the care of a man who has learned the cost of speaking carelessly. Max's eyes narrow with suspicion. "What kind of opportunities?" "I know people. Gallery owners, private collectors, art patrons who value genuine talent over pedigree. A piece like this, with the right presentation, the right story, it could open doors." "You want to use her," Max says, his voice flat with accusation. "I want to help her," Richard corrects, his tone sharp with unexpected emotion. "The way I should have helped you." The words hit their target with devastating accuracy. Max staggers slightly, as if physically struck by the admission he's waited years to hear. Lucy, emboldened by the strange electricity in the room, steps fully into view. "Mr. Turner? Are you really Max's daddy?" Richard's composed facade crumbles completely at the innocent question. "Yes, sweetheart, I am." "Then why don't you live together? Families are supposed to stick together." From the mouths of babes, the simple question cuts through years of pride and stubbornness, reducing a complex conflict to its essential truth. They are family, and family shouldn't abandon each other. "Sometimes," Richard says carefully, "grown-ups make mistakes that hurt the people they love most, and sometimes those mistakes take a very long time to fix." Lucy considers this with the serious contemplation children bring to adult problems. "My daddy used to say that the best apologies come with actions, not just words." The wisdom of Miguel Martinez, spoken through his daughter's voice, lands with the force of prophecy. Richard looks from Lucy to Max, seeing in their shared dedication to art something he'd been too blind to recognize in his own son. "You're right," he tells Lucy solemnly. "Actions matter more than words." The contest day dawns bright and crisp, autumn air carrying the promise of change. Lucy wakes before her alarm, too excited and nervous to sleep. Her painting, carefully wrapped and carried like precious cargo, represents more than artistic achievement. It's proof that beauty can survive tragedy, that hope can grow in the darkest soil. The community center buzzes with activity as young artists and their families converge for the annual competition. Easels line the walls, displaying everything from abstract explosions of color to meticulous still life studies. The skill levels vary wildly, from kindergarten finger paintings to high school portfolios that could hang in professional galleries. Lucy sets up her display with Max's help, positioning her painting to catch the morning light streaming through tall windows. Around them, other families arrange their presentations with varying degrees of confidence and anxiety. "Nervous?" Max asks, noting Lucy's trembling hands. "Terrified," she admits. "What if they don't understand what I was trying to paint?" "Then they don't deserve to judge art," Max says firmly. "But I think they will. I think they'll see exactly what you intended. A family's love that transcends everything, even death." As the judges begin their rounds, Lucy stands beside her painting like a small soldier guarding something precious. The three-person panel includes Mrs. Chen, a local gallery owner, Dr. Rodriguez, an art professor from the community college, and Sarah Williams, a professional artist whose landscapes hang in the mayor's office. When they reach Lucy's display, their casual conversation stops abruptly. Dr. Rodriguez leans closer, studying the brushwork with professional intensity. Mrs. Chen pulls out her reading glasses for a better look at the details. Ms. Williams takes a step back, viewing the composition as a whole. "Tell us about your painting," Mrs. Chen says gently. Lucy takes a deep breath, finding strength in the familiar words Max taught her to rehearse. "It's called The Colors of Home. It's about how love makes everything beautiful, even when sad things happen. The people in the painting are my family, and even though my daddy is in heaven now, we're still a family." The figure in the background, Dr. Rodriguez notes, pointing to Max's barely visible presence in the composition. "What does he represent?" Lucy glances at Max, who gives her an encouraging nod. "Sometimes new people come into your life and help you remember things you thought you forgot. He helped me remember that making art is like keeping love alive." The judges exchange meaningful looks, the kind of silent communication that passes between professionals who recognize something exceptional. "How long have you been painting?" Ms. Williams asks. "My whole life," Lucy says, then corrects herself with heartbreaking honesty. "Well, until 2 years ago when my daddy died. Then I stopped for a while. But Max helped me start again." As the judges move on to the next display, Lucy sags with relief and exhaustion. The hardest part is over. She's shared her heart with strangers and survived the vulnerability. In the audience, Lena watches her daughter with fierce pride. This brave little girl who lost her father and found her way back to art represents everything beautiful about the human spirit's resilience. Near the back of the room, Richard Turner observes the proceedings with the analytical eye of someone who has spent decades evaluating artistic merit. But when he looks at Lucy's painting, he sees more than technical skill or commercial potential. He sees the kind of authentic emotional expression that transforms craft into art. The announcement ceremony feels endless. Third place goes to a high school senior whose photorealistic portraits demonstrate impressive technical mastery. Second place is awarded to a middle school student whose abstract sculptures push creative boundaries with fearless experimentation. And first place, the announcer says, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent room, goes to Lucy Martinez for The Colors of Home. The words hit Lucy like lightning. For a moment, she stands frozen, unable to process what she's heard. Then Max is lifting her off the ground, spinning her around while she laughs and cries simultaneously. Lena pushes through the crowd, wrapping both of them in a fierce embrace that speaks of dreams fulfilled and futures secured. The $10,000 scholarship check feels surreal in Lucy's small hands, but the recognition means even more. She has been seen, her pain and hope acknowledged by people who understand that art can heal both artist and audience. As the crowd disperses and families pack up their displays, Richard approaches the small group still celebrating near Lucy's award-winning painting. "Congratulations," he tells Lucy formally, then breaks into a genuine smile. "That was exceptional work. You should be very proud." "Thank you, Mr. Turner," Lucy says politely, then with childlike directness asks, "Are you proud of Max too?" The question catches Richard off guard, but he recovers quickly, looking at his son with something that might be admiration. "Yes," he says quietly. "I am very proud." It's the first time he's said those words to Max, and their impact is immediate and profound. Years of anger and resentment don't disappear instantly, but they crack enough to let healing begin. "The scholarship will help with the house," Richard says to Lena, "but it might not be enough to solve everything." Lena nods, grateful but realistic about their remaining challenges. $10,000 is wonderful, but $15,000 plus legal fees remains a mountain to climb. "I'd like to propose something," Richard continues, his businessman's instincts kicking in. "My gallery has connections with private collectors who specialize in supporting emerging artists. If Lucy were interested in showing her work..." "She's 10 years old," Max interrupts, protective instincts flaring. "I know," Richard says patiently. "I'm not suggesting exploitation. I'm suggesting opportunity. A single commissioned piece for the right collector could provide the additional funds needed to save the house." He pulls out his phone, showing them images of a recent gallery opening where young artists' work was featured alongside established names. The presentation is respectful, educational, focused on fostering talent rather than commercializing childhood. "What would Lucy have to do?" Lena asks carefully. "Paint," Richard says simply. "Create one more piece that tells her story. I have a collector who specializes in family portraits with emotional significance. He pays very well for work that moves him." Lucy looks up at the adults discussing her future, feeling both excited and overwhelmed by the possibilities opening before her. "Can I paint our house? The way it looks when it's full of love and safe forever?" Richard nods solemnly. "I think that would be perfect." 2 weeks later, their dining room has become a professional studio. Richard has provided easel equipment, professional-grade paints, and proper lighting. Tools that transform Lucy's work from talented amateur to serious artist. But more importantly, he's provided something Max never expected: respect for the creative process. Lucy's commission piece evolves differently than her contest entry. This painting focuses on the house itself, rendered with the loving detail only someone who fears losing their home can bring to the subject. Every shingle, every window, every flower in the garden carries emotional weight. But it's the light she paints flowing from the windows that makes the piece extraordinary. This isn't just illumination. It's the visible representation of love, safety, belonging. The house glows like a beacon in her painted twilight, promising refuge to anyone who needs shelter from life's storms. "It's not just a house," she explains to her small audience as she adds final touches. "It's the feeling of being where you belong. It's knowing that no matter what happens outside, inside, There are people who love you exactly as you are. The collector who commissioned the piece arrives on a Thursday afternoon, a soft-spoken man in his 60s whose own life has been touched by loss and redemption. David Chen views Lucy's painting with the reverence it deserves. "My wife told me about your contest win," he says gently. "But she didn't prepare me for this level of emotional sophistication. This isn't the work of a child. This is the work of an artist who happens to be young." He writes the check on the spot, $15,000, enough to pay off the foreclosure and provide a small buffer for rebuilding their financial stability. But he insists that Lucy sign the painting, marking it as the first professional sale in what he predicts will be a significant artistic career. "Keep painting," he tells her as he carefully wraps his new acquisition. The world needs artists who remember that beauty and love are the same thing. That evening, they have a celebration dinner, their first truly relaxed meal since Max moved in months ago. The foreclosure notice has been replaced by a bank receipt showing their account balance in black instead of red. Lucy's scholarship fund sits safely in a college savings account, earning interest on dreams deferred but not abandoned. "So what happens now?" Lena asks as they clear the dishes. It's a question they've all been avoiding, the elephant in the room that threatens to spoil their happiness. Max's original plan was to keep moving, city to city, staying ahead of his past and his father's influence. But that was before Lucy, before this family that has claimed him as surely as if he'd been born into it. "I'd like to stay," Max says quietly, "if that's okay with everyone." Lucy's face lights up like sunrise. "Really? You won't leave when someone finds you?" Max glances at his father, who has remained uncharacteristically quiet throughout the evening. "I don't think I need to run anymore." Richard sets down his coffee cup, meeting his son's eyes with something that might be hope. "Turner Gallery has an opening for an art instructor, someone to work with young artists, help them develop their skills while maintaining their unique voices." The offer hangs in the air like a bridge between past and future. Max considers it carefully, weighing years of hurt against the possibility of healing. "I'd want creative control," he says finally. "No interference, no suggestions about making art more commercial or practical." "Agreed," Richard says immediately. "And I'd want to teach here sometimes, in this house. Make it a real community space where kids can come and create without worrying about whether they're good enough." Lena's eyes fill with tears at the vision Max is painting. Their home, which nearly became another casualty of economic hardship, transformed into a place where dreams are nurtured instead of abandoned. "I think Miguel would love that," she says softly. "He always said this house was too big for just the two of us." And so they begin to plan. The living room will become a proper studio space. The basement can be converted into storage for supplies and finished work. The backyard is perfect for outdoor painting sessions when weather permits. Lucy throws herself into the planning with the enthusiasm only children can bring to new projects. She draws floor plans and color schemes, imagining walls covered with student artwork and afternoons filled with creative energy. "We should have a gallery wall," she announces, "where everyone's best paintings can hang for a whole month, and maybe we could have shows, where families come see what their kids made." Her ideas flow like water breaking through a dam, years of suppressed creativity finally finding full expression. Max takes notes, recognizing good instincts when he hears them. Richard, meanwhile, begins making calls. His connections in the art world extend beyond commercial galleries to include educational foundations and community development organizations. Within a week, he secured partial funding for art supplies and basic renovation costs. "Consider it an investment," he tells Max when his son expresses concern about accepting help. "In your future, Lucy's future, and maybe our future." The word "our" carries weight between them, acknowledging a relationship neither is quite ready to define. but both are willing to explore. As autumn deepens toward winter, the transformation of house and family accelerates. Lucy's confidence grows with each passing day, her natural leadership skills emerging as she helps younger children in the informal art classes that have begun meeting twice a week. Max finds his teaching style through trial and error, learning to balance instruction with encouragement, technique with creative freedom. His father observes these sessions sometimes, taking notes in his ever-present notebook, but he keeps his distance and his opinions to himself. In the evenings, Max and Lena sit in their transformed living room, surrounded by easels and artwork, breathing in the lingering scent of creativity and community. "Are you happy?" Lena asks, the question carrying more weight than its simple words suggest. Max looks around at the evidence of lives rebuilt and dreams reclaimed. Lucy sleeps peacefully nearby, her face relaxed in the way that only comes with true security. The house no longer feels like it's holding its breath, waiting for the next crisis. Instead, it hums with the quiet satisfaction of a place where people belong. "Yeah," he says, surprising himself with how easily the answer comes. "I think I am." Outside, winter settles gently over the neighborhood, blanketing everything in the kind of peace that comes after storms have passed and new seasons begin. In the morning, Lucy will wake up and immediately start planning their next project. Maybe a mural for the side of the house, or a community garden where they can paint flowers before planting real ones. Max will teach his afternoon class at the gallery, then come home to help with evening students who gather around the kitchen table like artists have gathered for centuries. Lena will continue building her new life, piece by piece, day by day, understanding now that survival isn't just about getting through. It's about finding ways to thrive, to create beauty even in the midst of struggle, to build families from unlikely connections and hope from impossible circumstances. And Richard will drive home to his empty mansion, but he won't stay there long. Tomorrow he'll come back, sketchbook in hand, ready to learn from his son what he should have known all along. That art isn't about the price tags or the prestige or the perfect presentations. Art is about connection. It's about seeing the beauty in broken things and having the courage to paint what hope looks like. It's about understanding that sometimes the most valuable masterpieces aren't hanging in galleries. They're hanging on refrigerators, created by small hands guided by patient teachers who remember what it feels like to doubt their own magic. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, art gives you back everything you thought you'd lost. Family, home, and the faith that tomorrow's canvas is always blank and ready for whatever colors you're brave enough to use. In a house that glows with warm light and warmer hearts, a 10-year-old artist sleeps peacefully, dreaming of all the pictures she'll paint, and all the stories she'll tell, and all the magic she'll help others remember they carry in their own hands. The colors of home, it turns out, are every color you can imagine, and some you never knew existed until love taught you how to see them. If Lucy's journey from grief to healing touched your heart, please hit that like button and share this story with someone who needs a reminder that beauty can bloom even in the darkest times. Drop a comment below telling us, what would your colors of home look like? What memories or people make your house feel like a sanctuary? And if you want more stories about ordinary people discovering extraordinary courage, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Coming soon. Witness what a CEO discovers when he goes undercover as a janitor in The Janitor's Secret, and find out how an unexpected heir changes everything in the air no one expected. Your story matters, and magic is always waiting to bloom again. See you in the next story.